The phone ring tore through the silent night at 2:14 a.m., like an air raid siren cutting through peaceful sleep. For a travel nurse who had just finished a brutal 12-hour shift in the ICU, that sound sent my heart racing before my eyes even opened. I fumbled for the phone on my nightstand, knocking over an empty coffee cup in the process. My eyes were stinging from lack of sleep, my hands still trembling from the 4 espresso shots I'd downed to make it through the last 2 hours of my shift. "Brianna, save Dad. He's going to be paralyzed." My mother Marla's blood-curdling scream on the other end made my blood run cold. Every trace of exhaustion vanished, replaced by pure adrenaline flooding my system. She was sobbing deep, gasping sobs that sounded like she was drowning. "Mom, what?" "Spine, ruptured disc, permanent paralysis." Each word hit me like a physical blow. "You have 6 hours, Brianna. Are you listening to me? If we don't transfer $25,000 before 8 a.m., they will cancel the OR, and your father will never walk again." I sat bolt upright in bed, my nurse brain trying to engage through the fog of panic. "Why do you need cash? Where is the insurance? Dad has coverage, I pay for it every month." "It's Dr. Kinsley at the private neurological institute," Mom sobbed, her voice breaking on every syllable. "He's the only surgeon who can save the nerves right now, but he's completely out of network. The damage is so severe, Brianna. Your father is in so much pain, and they're saying if those nerves die, that's it. He'll be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life." "But Mom, Dr. Kinsley demands a cash retainer up front, $25,000 before he'll even scrub in." She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "We tried to apply for a medical loan tonight, but we got rejected instantly. You know how bad our credit is, Brianna. We're drowning in debt, and the banks won't touch us. We have no liquidity, nothing. I'm watching your father suffer right now, and there's nothing I can do." The lie was perfectly tailored to my fears, perfectly calibrated to exploit everything I knew about my parents' relationship with money. And I knew they were terrible with it. That was exactly why I paid their mortgage directly to the bank instead of giving them cash. It was entirely plausible to me that their credit score was tanked and no bank would lend them a dime. I woke Vaughn, shaking his shoulder hard. My fiancé sat up immediately, his engineer's mind switching on as he took in my tear-streaked face. "It's Dad," I choked out. "Emergency spinal surgery. They need $25,000 in cash by 8 a.m., or they'll cancel the operation." Vaughn ran a hand through his hair, already reaching for his glasses. "Can't they transfer him to an in-network hospital? Get a second opinion?" "There's no time." I was crying now, my voice rising to match my mother's panic. If the spinal cord is compressed, waiting for a transfer could mean permanent damage. "And you heard Mom, their credit is shot, they can't get a loan. We're their only option, Vaughn. We're the only thing standing between Dad and a wheelchair." I watched something shift in Vaughn's face. He didn't like it. I could see that, but he also wasn't going to let my father become paralyzed over money we had sitting in an account. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay, let's do it." With trembling hands, we logged into our joint savings account on my phone. The wedding fund money we had scraped together for 3 years, saving every bonus, every extra shift, every tax return, was sitting there. $25,847.32. Our future. Our celebration. Our new beginning. In a few clicks, I initiated a wire transfer of $25,000 to my mother's bank account. The confirmation screen glowed in the darkness of our bedroom. Available balance, $847.32. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at that number, thinking I had just bought my father's future, thinking I had just saved his life. I didn't know I had just bought a car. I texted Mom the confirmation number with shaking fingers. She responded immediately. "Thank you, baby. You saved him. I'll call you when he's feeling better." Vaughn pulled me against his chest, and I cried into his t-shirt while he stroked my hair. "It's okay," he murmured. "We'll save up again. We'll push the wedding back a year. Your dad is worth it." I believed him. I believed all of it. To understand why I fell for this, you have to look at the context of my life in those days. I'm a travel nurse in the Bay Area, earning between $4,000 and $5,000 a week depending on overtime. People hear that number and think I'm rich, but I'm not. I'm just a high-paid zombie, running on caffeine and guilt. I work 12-hour night shifts in the ICU, dealing with codes and crash carts and families watching their loved ones die. Then I drive home in the morning light, sleep for 5 hours if I'm lucky, and wake up to pay my parents' bills from 400 miles away. Their $3,500 monthly mortgage. Their health insurance premiums, their property taxes, their car insurance. I believed I was keeping them afloat. I believed I was being a good daughter from a distance, making up for the fact that I'd moved to the Bay Area for better pay instead of staying close to home in the high desert. I was so exhausted, so desperate to be the dutiful daughter, that I missed every single red flag waving right in front of my face. For 5 days after the transfer, there was radio silence. No updates on the surgery, no text saying Dad was out of the OR, no photo of him in recovery. Nothing. I called twice a day and got vague responses. He's resting. The doctor said he needs quiet. I'll call you when he's feeling better. On day 3, Vaughn's suspicion crystallized into something concrete. He was sitting at his laptop after work, frowning at his screen. "Brianna, come here." I walked over, still in my scrubs from my shift. "What?" "Log into your dad's insurance portal, the one you pay for." "Why?" "Just do it." I pulled up the insurance website on my phone and logged in with the credentials I used to pay the monthly premiums. I navigated to recent claims. Nothing. 0 claims in the past week. "There's nothing here," I said slowly. "Exactly." Vaughn's jaw was tight. "Why is there no anesthesia bill on the insurance portal? Even out-of-network surgeons use in-network facilities. The anesthesiologist would bill insurance. The facility fee would bill insurance. Something would show up." A cold stone dropped into my stomach. "Maybe it hasn't processed yet?" "It's been 5 days, Brianna." I stared at the empty claims list. The gnawing feeling in my gut that I'd been trying to ignore for days suddenly became impossible to suppress. "We need to go there," I heard myself say. "We need to drive down there." Vaughn was already closing his laptop. "I'll pack a bag." We drove 6 hours through the night from the Bay Area down to the high desert, taking turns at the wheel while the other one tried to sleep. But I couldn't sleep. I kept running through scenarios in my head. Maybe the surgery was so specialized it hadn't hit the insurance system yet. Maybe there was a billing delay. Maybe. "Stop," Vaughn said gently, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "We'll know soon." We pulled into my parents' driveway just as the sun was coming up, painting the desert sky in shades of orange and pink. I was prepared for anything. A wheelchair ramp. A hospital bed visible through the window. My father in a back brace, moving carefully. Instead, time stopped. My dad, Leland Hayes, the man supposedly recovering from emergency spinal surgery 5 days ago, was climbing a ladder. Not struggling up a ladder, not being helped up a ladder, climbing it with the agility and confidence of a man who had never had back surgery in his life. He moved like a teenager, reaching up to the roof with a sponge in one hand and a bucket in the other. He was whistling, actually whistling a cheerful tune while he scrubbed the roof of a massive, shiny black Mercedes Sprinter van parked in the driveway. The thing was gorgeous, custom rims, tinted windows, a paint job that gleamed like liquid obsidian in the morning light. I got out of the car, my legs moving on autopilot. My knees felt weak, but not from the exhaustion of the drive, from something else, something that felt like the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. The $25,000 didn't go to a neurosurgeon. It went to a dealership. I stood there, frozen, staring at my father's healthy back as he stretched to reach a spot on the roof. No surgical scars, no pain, no wheelchair. Just a man washing his son's new toy. Right then, Jagger, my 9-year-old brother, walked out of the front door with a coffee cup in hand, wearing a vintage band t-shirt and ripped jeans. He looked relaxed, happy even. Not malicious, just excited, like a kid on Christmas morning who'd gotten exactly what he wanted. He didn't even seem surprised to see me. "Sis, you're home!" He grinned, walking over to pat the side of the van like it was a prized horse. "You're just in time to see her. Isn't she beautiful?" I couldn't speak. My mouth opened but no sound came out. Jagger ran his hand lovingly along the van's sleek surface. The down payment was all I needed. I've been trying to make this happen for 2 years, but I could never get the cash together. Once I hit the road with this beauty, the gigs will pay for the monthly installments. I can finally tour the West Coast properly, hit all the festivals. This is going to change everything for my music career. It's a solid investment. Him? He genuinely believed it. He was so completely, utterly delusional that he thought taking my wedding money to buy a luxury vehicle was a legitimate business partnership. Like I was a venture capitalist who'd just funded his startup. Down payment? The word came out as a whisper, my voice trembling. Mom said you couldn't get a loan because your credit was bad. I sent that money because I thought no bank would approve you. Jagger laughed, actually laughed oblivious to the bomb he was dropping. What? No way. The dealer ran Mom and Dad's credit, and it came back over $750. The guy was super impressed. Said they were model customers. That's why they approved the financing for the remaining $35,000 so fast. We just needed your cash to unlock the deal, you know, the 20% down payment they required for the premium model. The world tilted sideways. Over 750. Their credit score was over 750. I stood there on the driveway, the desert sun already beating down on my head, and the full picture snapped into focus with brutal clarity. For 2 years, I had been paying their mortgage directly to the bank. Not giving them cash, never cash, because I knew they couldn't handle money. I sent the payments straight to the mortgage company, every single month, $2,800 on the dot. I paid their insurance premiums, their property taxes, everything that could hurt their credit if it went unpaid, I paid. My kindness over the last 2 years hadn't just been used, it had been weaponized. My payments had built their perfect credit score, which they then used to scam me out of $25,000 while lying about medical emergencies and fake paralysis. Brianna? Brianna? Jagger's smile was fading now, finally noticing that I hadn't said anything. You okay? Before I could answer, my mother appeared in the doorway. Marla Hayes, 60 years old, wearing a floral bathrobe and holding her own coffee mug. When our eyes met, I watched her face cycle through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, guilt, calculation, and finally, defense. She walked down the steps and came to stand next to Jagger, putting her hand on his shoulder in a protective gesture that made me want to scream. "You drove all the way down here?" she asked, like this was a casual surprise visit. "We weren't expecting you." "Where's the paralysis, Mom?" My voice came out flat, dead. "Where's the wheelchair? Where's the emergency spinal surgery that was going to happen 5 days ago?" "Oh, honey." She had the audacity to look relieved. "The doctor called back after you sent the money. He said Dad just needs physical therapy after all. Isn't that wonderful? The MRI showed it wasn't as bad as they thought. We didn't want to worry you with all the back and forth medical stuff." "You didn't want to worry me." I repeated the words slowly, tasting the lie on my tongue. "That's right." Mom nodded, warming to her story now. "And look, while I have you here, I know you're probably upset about the van, but you have to understand. Jagger has been so depressed lately, so stuck. This van gives him a purpose, a real shot at making his dreams happen. You know how much his music means to him. When he gets famous and starts making real money from his tours, he'll pay you back double, triple, even." Vaughn stepped forward from where he'd been standing by our car. His face was pale, drained of color, but his jaw was set so hard I thought his teeth would crack. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, controlled, which made it even more terrifying. "This isn't an investment, Marla." Each word was precise, like he was presenting evidence in court. "This is grand larceny. You looked your daughter in the eye, lied about her father being paralyzed, fabricated an emergency surgery, and stole her wedding fund to buy a toy for your unemployed son. Do you understand what you've done? You committed wire fraud. You are sick." Mom's face flushed red. "How dare you speak to me that way? We're family. This is between me and my daughter." "I'm about to be family too," Vaughn cut her off, his voice dropping even lower. "And I'm telling you right now, if you were anyone else, we'd already be on the phone with the police. We have the texts. We have the wire transfer record. We have documented proof of fraud." "You wouldn't dare." But Mom's voice wavered slightly. I looked past her at my father, who had finally climbed down from the ladder. Leland Hayes stood there with his sponge still in hand, water dripping onto the driveway, pretending to be very interested in a spot he'd missed on the windshield, not defending his wife, not apologizing to his daughter, just avoiding. I looked at Mom, who was already preparing her next excuse, her next manipulation, her next way to twist this into somehow being my fault. And I looked at Jagger, who was still standing next to the van with a confused expression, like he couldn't understand why everyone was so upset about his investment opportunity. For the first time in my life, I didn't see family. I saw a black hole that would never be full, no matter how much of myself I threw into it. I saw people who had turned love into a transaction, and I was always the one paying. A cold, clear decision began to form in my mind. Not revenge, not yet. Just a simple boundary that I should have drawn years ago. Seeing that I wasn't accepting the investment narrative, Marla switched tactics with the speed of a seasoned manipulator. She stepped closer to me, her face shifting from defensive to wounded. "Why are you being so calculating with your brother?" Her voice took on a hurt, bewildered tone. "Vaughn is an engineer making great money, and you're a high-paid nurse pulling in thousands every week. You two can earn that money back in a few months, it's just a number in an account to you. But your brother? He has a sensitive soul, Brianna. He needs this van to find his inspiration, to finally break through and make something of himself. Stop acting like a victim when you're the one with all the money." The words hit me like a slap. In 2 sentences, she had transformed the entire narrative. I was no longer the daughter who had been robbed through an elaborate medical lie. I was the greedy villain, the cold-hearted sister hoarding wealth while her struggling artist brother just needed one chance. "Are you serious right now?" I heard myself say, my voice rising. "You told me Dad was going to be paralyzed. You said I had 6 hours to save him. You made me think." I was stressed. "Your father was in pain, and I panicked." Mom's voice rose to match mine. "What kind of daughter keeps score like this? What kind of person demands their money back when it's already helping the family?" Helping the family? I was shaking now, rage and grief mixing into something that made my vision blur. "You stole from me, Mom. You lied about a medical emergency to steal my wedding fund." "Oh, here we go with the wedding." Mom rolled her eyes dramatically. "You can have another wedding, Brianna. You can have 10 weddings with your salary. But Jagger only gets one shot at his music career, and he's running out of time. He's 29 years old. Do you want him to end up a failure?" The implication was clear. If Jagger failed, it would be my fault for not supporting him, for being selfish with my money that should have been our money, because that's what family does. A fierce battle raged in my head. The little girl who had always tried to be good, who had always tried to make Mom proud, who had always swallowed her own needs to keep the peace she was screaming at me to back down, to apologize, to make this okay somehow. But another voice, quieter but stronger, was asking different questions. Vaughn leaned close and whispered in my ear, "We have the texts. We have the wire transfer record. We have proof of wire fraud. We can call the sheriff right now, Brianna. They could be arrested today." I looked at them. Really looked at them. Jagger was walking back toward the van, running his hand along the paint job, already explaining to Dad about the premium sound system he'd had them install. He was pathetic, really. A 29-year-old man who still thought success would just appear if he had the right equipment, the right vibe, the right anything except actual work and talent. Dad was nodding along. Asking questions about the stereo like this was a normal father-son conversation about a purchase anyone might make. And Mom was watching me with calculating eyes, already planning her next move, her next angle. If I sent them to jail, I would be the evil daughter forever. I would be the one who destroyed the family over money. Never mind that they had destroyed me first. The narrative would be written by whoever told the story to the extended family, to the neighbors, to anyone who would listen. And Marla was a master storyteller. I wanted a different kind of justice. Something that would hurt more than a court date. Something that would last longer than a fine. I asked myself a question that would haunt me for years. Was I wrong for not calling the police right then? I had the evidence. I had witnesses. I had every legal right to press charges for wire fraud. But instead, I made a choice. I looked straight into my mother's eyes and said, calm and clear, "Fine. Jagger is your investment, right? Your golden ticket to future wealth?" "Exactly," Mom said, relief flooding her face. "I knew you'd understand once. Then let that investment support you from now on." The relief vanished, replaced by confusion. "What?" "You heard me. If Jagger's music career is such a sure thing, if this van is going to make him rich, then he can take over the bills I've been paying, the mortgage, the insurance, the property taxes. All of it. Don't be dramatic, Brianna. Mom waved her hand dismissively. You're upset. I get it. But let's not. I'm not being dramatic. I took a step back, deliberately putting distance between us. I'm being done. You're not thinking clearly. Mom tried again, her voice taking on a soothing quality. Why don't you come inside, have some coffee, and we can talk about this like adults. We are talking like adults. Adults who understand that actions have consequences. Jagger finally caught on that something was wrong. He walked back over, frowning. Sis, come on, don't be like this. I really will pay you back once the tours start bringing in cash. I don't want your money, Jagger. Then what do you want? Mom's voice was getting shrill now. I want to be invisible to you. The way you've been treating me my whole life like an ATM that occasionally needs an oil change. Well, this ATM is closed. I turned and walked back to Vaughn, who was already opening the car door for me. My hands were steady now. My mind was clear. Brianna Marie Hayes! Mom shouted as I slid into the passenger seat. Don't you dare drive away from me. Don't you dare cut off your own family. But I did. Vaughn started the engine, and we pulled out of that driveway while Mom stood there screaming and Dad just watched, and Jagger looked confused, probably still not fully understanding what had just happened. As soon as we turned the corner, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I had saved as Aunt P. Paula. I saw the van. I heard the screaming. Did they seriously buy that with your wedding money? Paula. My mother's biological sister, the black sheep of the family who had moved to the other side of the county specifically to get away from Marla's drama. The aunt who had always been honest with me, even when it hurt. I texted back. Yes. They told me Dad needed emergency spine surgery. Paula. Oh, honey. Oh no, I am so sorry. Your mother is. I don't even have words. Listen. If you need eyes on the ground, if you need someone to tell you the truth about what's happening here, I'm here. Just don't tell them I'm talking to you. A lifeline. An ally behind enemy lines. Me. Thank you. I might take you up on that. Paula. Whatever you need. I mean it. I've watched Marla manipulate you for years, and I've hated myself for not speaking up sooner. I'm speaking up now. I put my phone down and looked out the window at the desert landscape flying past. Vaughn reached over and took my hand. What are you thinking? He asked quietly. I'm thinking, I said slowly, that they have no idea what's coming. On the drive back to the bay, somewhere between mile marker 150 and 151 on Interstate 5, I made the decisive move. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The mortgage payment was scheduled to auto-draft in 3 weeks, on the 1st of next month, $2,800, like clockwork, directly to the bank that held their mortgage. I clicked into the settings. Mortgage direct pay. Cancelled. Then I opened the insurance portal. Their health insurance policy that I'd been paying for 2 years, the one that cost me $700 a month. Policy autopay. Cancelled. The $3,500 per month life support I'd been providing was severed. Just like that. No phone call. No warning email. No certified letter giving them 30 days notice. I didn't send a warning text. I didn't write an explanation. This was the trap, though I didn't think of it that way at the time. I was just done. Completely, utterly finished. Vaughn glanced over from the driver's seat, noticed the glow of my phone screen. What are you doing? Cutting them off. The payments? All of them. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Good. Here's what I understood about my parents and Jagger, what I'd learned from 32 years of watching them operate. They heard my words in that driveway, but they didn't believe them. They thought I was bluffing. They thought this was just another fight that would blow over, because all our other fights had blown over. In their minds, I was the eternal fixer, the responsible one, the girl who always paid the bills in the end because she was too afraid to let them fail. They believed that by the 1st of the month, the money would magically appear in their accounts as it always did, that I would cool down, feel guilty, and resume my role as the family's financial safety net. Their arrogance blinded them, and I was counting on it. When we got back to our apartment in the Bay Area, I did something I'd never done before. I blocked their numbers. All 3 of them, Mom, Dad, and Jagger. Then I blocked them on social media, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. I didn't just cut them off financially. I disappeared from their world completely, leaving them alone with their $60,000 mistake and no way to reach me except through intermediaries they didn't even know I had. Vaughn watched me do all of this from the kitchen table, where he was eating leftover pizza and trying to process everything that had happened in the last 48 hours. "They're going to realize it in 30 days, he said quietly. "When the mortgage payment doesn't hit, then they'll come for you." "Let them come," I said, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over me. "I'm not holding the checkbook anymore. What if they show up here? We'll call building security. They're not on the visitor list. What if they track you down at work? Hospital security doesn't play around with people who harass staff. They'll be escorted out." Vaughn set down his pizza slice. "You've really thought this through." I had time in the car to think. I sat down across from him. They made their choice when they bought that van. Now they get to live with it. Through Aunt Paula, I learned everything I needed to know about what was happening down south while I rebuilt my life in California. "Paula, they haven't figured it out yet. Your mom is telling everyone at church about Jagger's big tour plans. She's so proud, showing people pictures of the van." "Paula, Jagger left yesterday, loaded up the van with his band equipment and headed out to the desert. Said something about a music festival circuit and connecting with his artistic roots. He took 2 friends with him." "Paula, your dad bought a new flat-screen TV, 65 inches, had it delivered today." That last text made me laugh a bitter, sharp sound. They were actively spending money they didn't have, living like lottery winners in the brief window before reality came crashing down. I focused on my life. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital, working 4 12-hour shifts a week instead of 3. The overtime pay was incredible. I watched our wedding fund slowly start to rebuild. $847, then $1,500, then $3,200. Vaughn and I talked about postponing the wedding until we had the money back. But we also talked about something else. "What if we just did it?" he said one night while we were cooking dinner together. "City Hall, your friend Sarah as a witness, my brother, then dinner somewhere nice." "That's not the wedding we planned." "No, but it's a wedding. And honestly, after all this, I kind of just want you to be my wife. I don't want to wait another year for a party." I thought about it while I stirred pasta sauce. Thought about how the big wedding had been partly for my parents anyway. For Mom to show off to her church friends. For Dad to walk me down the aisle and feel important. "City Hall sounds perfect," I said. We got married on a Tuesday afternoon in October, 3 weeks after the driveway confrontation. Sarah and Vaughn's brother Mike were our witnesses. I wore a cream-colored dress I already owned. Vaughn wore his nice suit. We said our vows in front of a judge, and then we went to a fancy restaurant where we ate steak and drank wine and laughed about how we'd just saved $20,000 by skipping the big wedding. I didn't tell my parents. Why would I? They weren't paying for it. They weren't invited. They had already taken their piece. Through Paula, I learned that they still hadn't figured it out. 3 weeks had passed since I'd canceled the payments, but the mortgage wasn't due until the 1st of the month. They were living in blissful ignorance, convinced I was just mad and would get over it. "Paula, your mom tried to call you today. Got the, 'This number is no longer in service' message. She thinks you changed your number and didn't tell her. She's telling everyone you're being childish." "Good. Let her think that." "Paula, Jagger's still gone. The van tracker shows he's somewhere near Joshua Tree. I think he's actually camping out there." I didn't respond to that one. I didn't care where Jagger was. November 1st was coming. The day the mortgage payment would fail to process. The day the insurance premium would bounce. The day they would finally understand that I meant every word I'd said in that driveway. Vaughn caught me staring at the calendar one night. "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking that they're about to find out I wasn't bluffing. Are you ready for what comes next?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but I'm not backing down." He pulled me close, kissed the top of my head. "Then I'm with you. Whatever happens. The hunter's patience, I would learn, is about knowing when to act and when to wait." I had set the trap. Now all I had to do was let them walk into it, and they would, because they always did. The silence broke exactly a week later, but I heard it through Aunt Paula. I was midway through a 12-hour shift at the hospital when my phone buzzed. Paula's text came through in fragments, the kind of frantic typing that suggested she was hiding in a bathroom stall or her car. Power company sent final notice. Your mom called me screaming that the bank made a mistake with the autopay. I stopped walking in the middle of the corridor. A resident nearly crashed into me with a medication cart. I told her to check with you, but she said she can't reach you. Of course she couldn't. I'd blocked both their numbers the day I left the desert. She ended up selling your dad's fancy espresso machine to keep the lights on. The one he bought last Christmas. $400 on Facebook Marketplace. I slipped into an empty supply closet and read the message again. The trap had snapped shut. The espresso machine. Dad had bragged about it during one of our mandatory Sunday calls last year. Top of the line, Brie. Makes cafe quality lattes. Your mother got it for me as an early Christmas present. Translation. Marla had bought it with money that should have gone toward their mortgage, and now they were liquidating assets to survive. I typed back to Paula with steady fingers. Don't tell them how to reach me. Let me know if anything else happens. Are you sure? Your mom sounded really scared. I'm sure. I pocketed my phone and returned to my shift. A code blue was called on the second floor. I ran toward it without looking back. Over the next few months, Paula's updates painted a picture of absolute ruin. Each text arrived like a news bulletin from a distant war zone, clinical, factual, devastating. By the second month, Paula texted that Jagger had come home. He wasn't working. My mom kept making excuses for him, saying he was regrouping and networking. The van was parked in the driveway like a monument. In the third month, things deteriorated further. Dad tried to get a part-time job at Home Depot, but Mom made him quit after 2 weeks, claiming it was humiliating for a man his age. Paula said they were eating through their credit cards now. Month 4 brought car troubles. The van needed new tires, which cost $800. Jagger told them he'd pay them back when the sponsorship comes through, but it never did. They put it on a card. I read each message in my car before driving home. I never responded with more than okay or thanks for the update. I didn't ask questions. I didn't offer solutions. I was a researcher observing an experiment, watching variables collapse in real time. Vaughn noticed the change in me. He'd catch me staring at my phone with an expression he couldn't quite read. You okay? You okay? He asked one night as we sat on the couch, his arm draped around my shoulders. I'm fine, I said. Just tired. Brianna. He turned my face toward his. You're smiling. I was. I hadn't even realized it. They're drowning, I said quietly. And I'm not jumping in to save them. Vaughn kissed my forehead. Good. The 5th month brought the phone call I'd been waiting for. Paula texted first. Your dad is about to call Vaughn. He's desperate, just warning you. I was in the kitchen chopping vegetables when Vaughn's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, then at me. I nodded. He answered on speaker. Vaughn, son. Dad's voice was smaller than I remembered. Thinner. I hate to bother you, but we're in a bit of a bind here. What kind of bind? Vaughn's tone was perfectly neutral. He could have been asking about the weather. We need about $500 for groceries. Just a loan. We'll pay you back next month when Marla's pension check comes in. My knife stilled against the cutting board. $500. That was 4 months of car insurance on the Mercedes Sprinter van sitting in their driveway. That was the cost of the espresso machine they'd already sold. Vaughn didn't even glance at me for permission. He spoke into the phone with surgical precision. You have a $60,000 Mercedes in the driveway. Sell it. Silence. I could hear Dad breathing on the other end, rapid and shallow. That's Jagger's van. He needs it for what? Vaughn interrupted. He's not touring. He's not working. It's a luxury vehicle that's bleeding you dry. Sell it, or take out a loan against it. But don't call me asking for grocery money when you're sitting on an asset worth more than most people's annual salary. Vaughn, please. Marla will be devastated if... Then Marla should have thought about that before she stole $25,000 from her daughter. The line went dead. Vaughn set his phone on the counter and returned to scrolling through his tablet as if nothing had happened. My hands were shaking. I put down the knife before I cut myself. Thank you, I whispered. He looked up. You don't thank me for basic decency, Brianna. That's the baseline. I crossed the kitchen and wrapped my arms around him from behind. He smelled like the laundry detergent we always bought and the faint trace of his cologne. He smelled like home. They're not getting another cent, he murmured. Not from us. Not ever. I know. The 6th month was when Paula sent the photos. The first was a screenshot from Nextdoor, the neighborhood app where people sold used furniture and complained about unleashed dogs. The listing was from an account under Marla's name. Moving sale, urgent. Beautiful oak dining set, seats 8, $600 OBO, 65-inch Samsung Smart TV, like new, $400, must sell by Friday, cash only, serious inquiries only, MN. The dining set, the one they'd bought 3 years ago after refinancing the house. The TV that Dad had mounted on the living room wall himself, spending an entire Saturday leveling it with a ruler. I zoomed in on the photo. The table was the same one I'd sat at during 1,000 awkward family dinners, listening to Jagger talk about his artistic vision, while Marla nodded along like he was pitching the next Pixar film. The second photo was worse. Paula had sent it with a single sentence. Saw your mom at the jewelry store today. It was a place that bought estate pieces. I'd driven past it 100 times growing up. It had a reputation for fair prices and discretion. In the photo taken from Paula's car across the parking lot, Marla was walking out of the store. But it wasn't her face that caught my attention. It was what she was clutching in her hand, having just entered the store with it moments before, only to leave empty-handed. Actually, she wasn't clutching it anymore. But Paula had described it in the text. She sold your grandmother's jewelry. Paula's next text read, I saw her walk in with that red velvet box, the one with the brass latch. I saw it in her hand. She came out without it. I'm sorry, Brie. The red velvet box, the one containing Grandma's garnets, the necklace and earrings she'd left to Marla in her will, with the explicit verbal request that they'd eventually go to me. For Brianna, when she's older, Grandma had said during one of her last Christmases with us, she'll appreciate them. I stared at the text until my vision blurred. Marla was stripping the house bare to pay the interest on the van loan. She was selling heirlooms, furniture, electronics, everything that wasn't nailed down because she was terrified that repossession would hurt Jagger's feelings. The golden child's chariot was more important than the family legacy. The foreclosure notice came in the 7th month. Paula didn't text me about it. She called. They lost the house, she said without preamble. The bank took it. The eviction notice came yesterday. I was sitting in my car in the hospital parking lot. My shift just ended. The California sun was setting behind the hills, painting everything gold and red. Where are they going? I asked. I don't know. Your mom won't talk to me anymore. She thinks I'm feeding you information. Paula's voice cracked. Brianna, I saw Jagger yesterday. He was loading stuff into the van with his friends. He didn't even help your parents pack. He just took his things and left. I closed my eyes. The irony was so perfect it almost hurt. Jagger, the golden child, the reason for all of this, had driven away in the $60,000 Mercedes Sprinter van when the eviction notice came. He'd saved the car. He'd abandoned the people who'd bought it for him. He'd left them on the curb with nothing. Thanks for telling me, Paula, I said quietly. Are you going to? No. Silence. Okay, she exhaled. I understand. I hung up and sat in the car for another 20 minutes, watching the sun disappear behind the hills. Somewhere in the desert, my parents were packing their lives into boxes, preparing to leave the house they'd lived in for 30 years. Somewhere, Jagger was driving that van down a highway, windows down, music blaring, free. I started the engine and drove home to Vaughn. I didn't cry. I didn't feel guilty. I felt nothing at all. 4 years later, I stand in my kitchen in the California suburbs and watch my daughter destroy a banana. Lily is 1 year old, which means she's at the stage where food is less about nutrition and more about performance art. The banana is smeared across her high chair tray, her face, and somehow the wall behind her. She looks at me with enormous blue eyes, Vaughn's eyes, and laughs like she's just invented comedy. You're a menace, I tell her. She claps her banana-covered hands in response. Vaughn appears in the doorway, coffee mug in hand, already dressed for work. He takes in the scene and grins. Should I call hazmat? Probably. He crosses the kitchen and kisses the top of my head, then leans down to kiss Lily's cheek. She immediately tries to grab his tie. He's learned to tuck it into his shirt before entering her blast radius. This is my life now. Modest 3-bedroom house with a mortgage we can actually afford, healthy savings account, a daughter who will never know what it's like to be the unfavorite child, a husband who sets boundaries like he's building fortresses. We are happy because our life is peaceful. The mail comes at 10 a.m. I'm wiping banana off the wall when I hear the slot in the front door clatter. Lily is now contained in her playpen, gnawing on a rubber giraffe and babbling to herself in a language only she understands. I sort through the usual assortment bills, grocery store flyers, a wedding invitation from one of Vaughn's co-workers. Then I see it, a handwritten envelope, no return address, postmarked from the desert. My hands go cold. I know that handwriting. It's shaky now, less confident than it used to be, but it's unmistakably Marla's. I should throw it away. I should light it on fire in the sink and wash the ashes down the drain. Instead, I open it. The letter is 2 pages, written on cheap lined paper that looks like it came from a dollar store notebook. Marla's handwriting slopes downward on the page, getting smaller and more cramped as it goes. Dear Brianna, it begins. Not Brie, not sweetheart. She's forgotten that she ever called me those things, or maybe she knows she's lost the right to them. I know you don't want to hear from me. I know you probably hate us. But I'm writing to you anyway because I'm your mother and I need you to understand what happened to us. I scan ahead. The letter is exactly what I expected. A sob story. They're living in a trailer park on the edge of town now. A double wide, with rust stains and a leaking roof. Dad's health is declining, she doesn't specify how, which means he's fine and she's lying again. They survive on his pension and her part-time job at a grocery store. They barely make rent. Jagger is gone. He moved to Portland 2 years ago with a girl he met online. He doesn't call, he doesn't visit, he doesn't send money. The van died somewhere in Oregon and he sold it for scrap. The golden child has left them behind. We are alone, Marla writes, and I can feel her trying to inject emotion into the words, trying to make me feel something. Your father cries at night. He misses you. He wants to apologize, but he doesn't know how to reach you. We made mistakes, Brianna. Terrible mistakes. But we're still your parents. Doesn't that count for something? I flip to the second page. My jaw tightens. Aunt Paula let slip that you have a daughter. Of course she did. Paula has a good heart, which makes her terrible at keeping secrets. Please, Brianna, let us see her. Let us be grandparents. It's the only joy we have left. We don't need money. We don't need anything from you except a chance to know our granddaughter. Don't punish us forever. Don't let your anger rob that little girl of her family. The letter is signed with both their names. Marla's signature is large and looping. Leland's is small and cramped, squeezed into the space she left him. Something falls out of the envelope when I shake it. A photograph. I pick it up with numb fingers. It's me at 5 years old, sitting on Dad's shoulders at the county fair. I'm holding a stuffed elephant I won at the ring toss. Dad's hands are wrapped around my ankles, holding me steady. I'm laughing. He's smiling up at me like I'm the best thing he's ever made. I stare at that little girl and feel nothing but pity. She doesn't know yet. She doesn't know that in 27 years, the man holding her will choose her brother over her. She doesn't know that her mother will steal from her and then blame her for being upset about it. She doesn't know that family will become a weapon used to extract resources instead of a source of safety. She still believes love is unconditional. I hear Vaughn's car in the driveway. He's home for lunch, something he does twice a week, so he can see Lily during the day. He walks in, takes one look at my face, and stops. What happened? I hand him the letter without a word. He reads it, standing in the kitchen, his expression hardening with every line. When he finishes, he sets it on the counter like it might contaminate him. What do you want to do? He asks. I look down at the photo again. That little girl on her father's shoulders. That man who used to make her feel safe. They don't miss me, I say quietly. They never missed me. They missed the $25,000. They missed the $3,500 a month. And now that they're broke and alone and Jagger's gone, they want access to Lily. They want a new retirement plan. Vaughn nods. So what do we do? I walk to the counter and pick up the letter. Then I tear it in half. Then in half again. I do the same to the photo, right down the middle, separating 5-year-old me from the father who's holding her. The pieces fall into the trash can like confetti. I pull out my phone and open my messages with Aunt Paula. Do not give them my address. If they show up here, I will treat them as trespassers. If you tell them where I live, you and I are done. Do you understand? 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. I understand. I'm sorry, Bree. I never should have mentioned Lily. No, you shouldn't have. I set the phone down and look at Vaughn. He's watching me with something like pride. You okay? He asks. I'm perfect. I walk to the playpen and lift Lily into my arms. She smells like baby shampoo and banana and everything good in the world. She grabs a fistful of my hair and yanks it, giggling. Ow, I say, laughing. You're lucky you're cute. Vaughn wraps his arms around both of us. We stand like that in the kitchen, a unit, a fortress, a family. Blood makes you related, I whisper into Lily's soft hair. But loyalty makes you family. She won't remember me saying this. But I'll remember. And when she's old enough to ask why she doesn't have grandparents on my side, I'll tell her the truth. I'll tell her that breaking the cycle isn't about fixing the people who broke you. It's about building a wall so high that they can never climb over it to hurt the people you love. The letter is in the trash. The photo is destroyed, the door is closed, and we are finally, completely free.